it is good. The Minnesota Vikings win it in overtime.
It was just the game we had to play, and I was proud of the way we were able to stay resilient, keep playing. Again, when your defense creates turnovers and gives you short fields, it makes life a lot easier. And we unfortunately did not capitalize on those enough, but we kept being gifted some really good opportunities. And then it was great to be able to hit, a shot down to Justin Jefferson down the sideline, and a few different plays here and there that kind of got us back in it.
And welcome to the show, Purple Daily with Mackey and Judd, Phil Mackey, Judd Zulgad, Declan Goff producing. And you can find yesterday's edition of Vikings Vent Line on demand on our YouTube page. If you want the full video, the full production, it's youtube.com/Purple Daily Podcast. We appreciate everyone who has subscribed to that channel. And you can subscribe to our podcast, Apple, Spotify, and ScoreNorth.com. Boys, the Vikings are 6-6. They are in the 7th playoff spot right now with a chance to climb even higher against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And even though yesterday's game was very Jaguarsian, a lot of turnovers, a lot of mud, in the end, it was my guy. Who's got 2 thumbs and a clutch quarterback at the end leading game-winning drives? None other than Mr. Game-winning drive himself. That's right. Kirk Cousins. Pour one out, boys. Pour one out.
After that game, I could have poured about 8 out.
Yeah.
In fact, I would have been very happy to have forgotten I watched the entire thing from both teams' standpoints too, not just one of them.
I may have went through a little mimosa and then delved into my Corona hard seltzers by the time the first quarter was over. So
I don't blame.
Dangerous.
19 net yards of offense for the Vikings in that quarter. I don't blame you.
Those
one
were
bit.
3.5 hours of our lives that we probably won't get back.
You will never get back. That probably ranks for me on Vikings games. That is probably a top 10 all-time just awful game to watch, just from just no style points.
Have you guys ever in your lives,
from anybody,
even when the Jaguars have had good teams like a couple years ago, have you ever gotten done with a Jaguars game and thought to yourself, boy, that was an amazing back and forth display of football?
Did Mark Brunell ever engage? He was good. Did Mark Brunell engage in a Jaguars? I was going to say Jaguarian
that's like
game
25 years ago.
No, I know, but you're asking a question about their franchise history.
I'm putting on my Manny Hill hat here, and I'm remembering a playoff game like 10 years ago where David Garrard ran all over the field and slayed Tom Brady into the divisional round.
Okay.
Like David Garrard and the Jags upset.
Okay.
One of those weird years where the Brady, like Belichick and Brady were like one and done for like 4 years between their Super Bowl runs.
Was that like what I guess the type of game I'm talking about is like these
enjoyable.
These games you see where it's like it's great offense on both sides. The defense is
that's what
doing
I'm saying.
some things. It's like 31-27. And it's just like who gets the ball last, right? And there's no turnovers, no safeties.
You know who coached a lot of sexy football games? Tommy Coughlin.
God, dude.
Tom Coughlin. Those Giants and Jaguars teams putting on offensive clinics.
And when I think of sexy football, I think Doug Marrone. That's right. I'm thinking if I'm looking for turnover-free, safety-free, missed extra point-free, Mike Glennon-free football, it's Doug Marrone. So here's what we're going to do on today's episode. Not only do we have our customary Monday Viking statements, we also have a hilarious Bears loss to react to with Bears Vent Line. So stick around for that here. But let's start with Judd Zulgad. We'll go around the room a bunch of times here. Viking statements after they pull back to 500.
Okay, I'm going to start off by not looking back, but instead looking ahead, because that Jaguars game was a piece of work. And statement 1 from me is this. Next Sunday's game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa, Florida, will tell us about this Vikings team post-bye week. They are 5-1. They lost to Dallas. The thing is, of their 6 wins, guys, only one has come against a team that is above 500 currently. That is the win that they got coming out of the bye at Lambeau against the Packers. Besides that, the Vikings have beaten pretty much bad football teams. So I really do believe, and Tampa is not perfect. Brady, within the confines of the Arians offense, has struggled, but Tampa is 7-5. They are a game up in the 6th seed right now in the playoff race in the conference on the Vikings. So my statement is, I really believe that Sunday's game will tell us about what this Vikings team is made of. Not the team that won one of their first 6 games, but the team that has rebounded strongly and won 5 of its past 6 post-bye week.
Real quick, off that point you just made, I know you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, and this team still has enough flaws to where you're not going to expect them to just win every game for like 2 months.
Yep.
But they really should have won that Dallas game, and they had the Dallas game in hand. The defense melted down a couple times. The offense had a chance at the end against a bad defense, and they just like couldn't put the final puzzle together.
Yep.
How much different would the talk around the Vikings, around the country be if they were sitting here at 7-5, having won every game since their bye week? Because right now I think it's like, oh, okay, this, if the Vikings can beat Tampa, this is kind of interesting. But if they were 7-5,
6-game win streak, right?
Yeah, they'd be regarded as like the hot team in the NFL.
Absolutely.
All right, here's my statement for you guys. One of many. Let's just get right to the praise. The late game luminary himself strikes again yesterday. And I know that a lot of the things that had to be overcome were somewhat self-inflicted. There was a terrible pick 6 to start the second half. And you could say, well, Dalvin Cook, I mean, buddy, turn around. What are you doing? You're the check down on that play. Why is your back turned after like 3 seconds, right?
It was a miscommunication, okay?
And I might say, listen, my guy's he's not beyond criticism, okay? Maybe don't throw it to your running back if he's got his back to you and there's a linebacker staring at you. But just, things happen.
You are so turning on him right now.
I'm not. Things happen, okay? All I ask
You're out of the family.
is that when things happen, whether it's self-inflicted or it's some Jaguars forces you're going against you.
Yep.
That you overcome the things that happen, just like last week in that game against the Panthers.
It's such a backhanded praise.
No, listen, I'm saying Kirk Cousins has overcome for the second straight week forces around him.
Yes.
And he has now tripled his game-winning drive total from his previous 2 seasons as Vikings quarterback. He now has 3 game-winning drives this season, as classified by ProFootballReference.com. He had 1 game-winning drive in 2018-19 combined in the regular season. He is Mr. Game-winning drive, the dagger doctor, the late-game luminary, the colossus of clutch, the fourth quarter pharaoh, Kirk Cousins. Beautiful handoff form, by the way, once they crossed the 50-yard line yesterday.
Nobody hands it off like Kirk to Dalvin.
Those were beautiful.
Except when it doesn't work, in which case it's fumbled.
But you know what? When it doesn't work, make sure that you go over to your running back with the cameras rolling and demonstrably show him how to take a handoff from you, okay?
Yeah.
That type of leadership
Dalvin
is important if you're looking to complete game-winning drives down the stretch. And I just want to point out, too, on that final drive, it was a lot of Dalvin Cook. In fact, it was 8 consecutive carries to Dalvin Cook. But Kirk Cousins, the first few plays of that drive, so they start, I think they started that drive at like their own 40-yard line or something. He passes to Adam Thielen for a 9-yard gain. He finds Tyler Conklin for 10 yards. His passing set up would have been either the game-winning field goal or Dalvin Cook running into the end zone. So Kirk Cousins, overcome. We'll see what happens when better teams pop up on the schedule, but never a doubt from me anyways. You guys can apologize and explain all you want.
He's worth every penny that he makes. You've always said that.
I've even told you, why aren't they paying him more money?
Yeah, salary cap league or no, he's worth every cent that he makes.
I'm pretty sure the Vikings have like $500,000 in cap space left over. Why that isn't going to Kirk for a bonus at this point, I have no idea.
It'll go right to Creed.
You know what? Sign Kirk's kids too. They'll play for you. Let's just keep it all in the Cousins family forever, as long as possible.
Mr. Game-winning drive.
Oh boy.
All right, I'm sorry to be negative on my first statement, but I have to just get this off my chest. Can we blast kickers into the sun? I'm so sick of kickers. There is an option on Blitz Football to press X to get an extra point. Why is that not a thing in the NFL? Dan Bailey, in his career as a Viking, from 20 to 39 yards, okay? From 20 to 39 yards, basically pooch shots, has missed 1 field goal in his Vikings tenure. Once from 20 to 39 yards. 1 field goal missed. Extra points, he has missed 8. He has missed 8 extra points.
That is super weird.
But he can make a field goal from 20 to 39 yards, Mr. Automatic. and it caused problems. It forced an overtime. Blast kickers into the sun. I am so done with kickers, dude. And I know the Players Association would come back for eliminating a position, but I think football will be better without it. Just eliminate kickers.
It is.
No field goals?
No field goals.
No field goal attempts?
What would you do? So you would have to cross the goal line to get points in your NFL?
Could you add a 5th down?
I don't know how that would help.
Well, like your offense would have more chances to get a first down. Like your offense would have.
Okay, so I see you. So you would just constantly be moving the ball.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, extra points being converted to 2-point conversions, I could actually see. But I don't think you can get rid of field goal attempts.
I think you have to keep field goals, but I'm with you on the extra points for sure. And it is really, think about all the things that you do in a week, and you're scheming, you're dealing with all the injuries to like your key players, and you're putting together these complicated game plans, and you're trying to impose your will on 53 other guys on the other side of the field, right?
And
it all comes down to
Declan comes on.
Dan Bailey, whether he woke up with with his leg feeling good or not.
A football game should not come down to someone who looks like me.
You're right.
1,000%.
That's such a good point.
It should never come down to someone who looks like me.
And it does all the time.
All the Super Bowls have been decided by people that look like me.
Guys who probably weigh exactly what you weigh get to decide games at times.
You know who you look exactly like? The Colts kicker, that Rodrigo Blankenship guy.
Colts kicker.
Here, let me pull this up here.
I'll look him up.
The Colts kicker.
Georgia, right?
His name is Rodrigo Blankenship.
Georgia kicker, right?
Just wait for it here. All right.
Oh, God.
Did he go to Georgia? Isn't that where Blair Walsh went?
Yes. I thought I thought he was.
I have weight. This guy's
Here,
already
Dex.
losing his hair at a young age. His hair doesn't
don't
even
know,
touch
man.
mine. He's balding on top.
Is Phil trying to tell you something?
No.
dude.
Is Phil trying to tell you something about your hair?
Dex, move your face up closer to the camera so people can compare.
Or kind of-
You are Rodrigo Blankenship.
Oh my God, he is! He's not losing his hair at all, Declan. Your hair looks just like that.
Look, we gotta
No,
get
he's losing his
we
hair.
gotta get you a Colts mask.
Can we get him a Colts?
It's not okay.
Declan,
That's too bad.
I think Mackey just nailed it,
He got
man.
it. Yeah, he got it.
You do look like him, Georgia.
Congratulations. We are deciding football games, me and Rodrigo. Really happy for
He's
everyone.
23. Yeah, this is great. Oh my God.
Both-
And he's really thin. Yeah.
Both guys having supreme non-Rocky success with women too. Judd, what's your next
How do you know
statement?
Rodrigo's women's success? We don't know that. We don't know that.
Depends on how
Just
many
look like a guy that probably does pretty well. on the
women are
weekends.
mad at him these days. All right, my next statement is this. And it'll be very, very simple. And as far again as Sunday's game against Tampa goes, it must be cleaned up. The fumbles must stop. The miscues must stop. You have now. Let's review the past 2 games against. All right, Carolina and Jacksonville, which have something in common. They both pretty much suck. Jacksonville's worse, but Carolina's not great. 2 possessions to open the third quarter against the Panthers resulted in a Cousins fumble, return for a touchdown. A Dalvin fumble, return for a touchdown. 14 points for the Panthers, basically before the third quarter had hit, 10 minutes in or 5 in, I should say. Okay. Then yesterday, Jacksonville, we have the Kirk throw to Dalvin. Again, they're involved. Results in a pick because Dalvin does not turn around. Kirk didn't expect that. And it results in, I believe, a 43-yard touchdown return by the Jaguars linebacker for a touchdown. Okay, that's 21 points in early third quarters. And then early in the fourth, at the goal line, we get the handoff to Dalvin, fumble charge to Kirk, but Dalvin's got to take the ball. In other words, you can do this against the Panthers and Jaguars. You proved that, right? But on Sunday, when you're playing Tampa Bay, or on Christmas Day, when you're playing the Saints at the Superdome, you do that, you almost certainly lose. Clean it up. Like, we're not talking about tough things to clean up. Clean it up.
Yeah, I mean, ordinarily, I think it would be a problem unless you've got a guy at the end of games that can bail you out like Mr. Game-winning drive.
How about Mr. Guad? It makes his life easier by not screwing up early in the third quarter, Mr. Guad.
Mr. Guad.
Mr. Guad, can we talk, please?
Mr. Glad.
I actually blame Riley Reef for not making a tackle on that linebacker to bail out his quarterback and his running back. Where was Riley Reef laying down on that play?
Very high PFF grade, my man.
He did it again.
Very high grade for the left tackle.
All right, my next statement is, honestly, the ugliness of this victory doesn't really matter to me So, first of all, I mentioned this off the top of the show that the Jaguars just have this way of pulling teams into their Jaguarsian vortex of bad football. There's all these like Jaguarsian rules to football games. Half of them have to take place on Thursday night. Another half of them have to have a final score that involves like a 19 or a 16 or a 5, like just some weird final score. There has to be at least a safety and or 4 turnovers in every Jaguars game. The Jaguars play ugly football, and they just like bring teams into their vortex. And so I wasn't super shocked that this game turned Jaguarsian. Secondly, we were genuinely debating 6 weeks ago on this show and on other shows whether this Vikings team would finish like 3-13 or 4-12, and whether they'd be in the mix for one of the top 3 or 4 draft picks, right? And so even though they've gotten hot, they're not exactly a perfect roster that is well honed and oiled. They've got rookies and backups that they're molding into starters. They were never going to coast smoothly against every single team, including the bad teams. So like if you're walking into a game and Eric Kendricks gets hurt and you're literally running out like 8 backups or rookies on defense, it's going to look kind of clunky. And that's kind of what happened yesterday. And so yesterday was an example of just get back to 500. The ugliness of the victory doesn't really matter. See what you can do against Tampa Bay with playoff ramifications next week. Or am I just being like way too forgiving of what happened?
You are.
Okay.
You are. You were played 3 consecutive games against bad teams. You lost to Dallas, Carolina. Hey, here's my problem. Offensive miscues and coaching at times when it comes to in-game management of the clock actually bugs me the most, I think. Like the defense I sort of get, because the defense, you're right, it's depleted. Does that mean I'm happy that Chris Boyd is not good at playing corner a lot of times? No, but I sort of get that. But fumbles are your fault. Like that play with Dalvin not turning around, that's on you, dudes. That's the type of thing that bothers me.
Yeah, I would say that's fair if we separated the bad things that happened into 2 bins. One bin is Todd Davis misses some tackles.
Yeah, that's right. That's ugly, but it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
I agree.
And the other bin is throwing a 35-yard fade route on 3rd and 1 with 25 seconds left in the 4th quarter to Adam Thielen. Like, okay, get back in the film room, go work with a Madden player, figure out how.
And to your point, Phil, you're not good enough with what you're working with currently to do that. Like if you're playing a good team, that means you're going to lose probably, right? Mm-hmm. So like control the things that you can control by making smart moves or protecting the football. I think that's fair.
Who's that? I think is Judd up next or Declan?
No, Declan is.
Declan.
I'm up. I'm back up. Lost track there. My statement would be thank you, Harrison Smith. Harrison Smith, who's been a linchpin of this defense for forever now. I mean, he's been arguably one of the best safeties of all time. You can make a case. He's on a case for a Pro Football Hall of Fame career. Yeah. And yesterday, when Eric Kendrick goes out, Harrison Smith steps up. 80.1 PFF grade. That was the 5th highest grade by a safety yesterday. And a stat stuffing day, 6 tackles, half a sack, 1 for a loss, 2 passes deflected, a quarterback hit, a big time interception. It was a classic Harrison Smith game. It's nothing that surprises us necessarily. But if Kendricks was out, and we learned how valuable Kendricks is by just seeing him being absent from the football field yesterday, Harrison Smith saved that from being a disastrous game, and it would have made Mike Glennon look like a Pro Bowl quarterback. So thank you to Harrison Smith.
Mike Glennon, man.
Let's keep the individual defensive performance statements going here. So Harrison Smith was great. Also a shout out to both Cam Dantzler and also Ifedi Adenabo yesterday. So Cam Dantzler was targeted, I don't have it in front of me, I believe it was 7 targets.
Yes, it was.
One catch. Yep. And it was the 3-yard catch that he punched loose for a fumble. So of the 7 times he was targeted, 1 was a pick. The only completion he turned into a fumble because of his own great play. It was not only one of the great performances of his young career so far, I think it was one of the great individual performances of any Vikings defender all season. Mm-hmm. And then on the Adenabo front, the Vikings 2 weeks ago against the Dallas Cowboys, as a team, generated 5 pressures on Andy Dalton as a team in 3 hours. Adenabo generated 8 pressures by himself against Mike Glennon and the Jacksonville Jaguars yesterday. 17 pressures as a team for the Vikings, and Adenabo had half of them.
And Ngakoue, who needed him?
Well, Adenabo, if it's just a rush the passer role and a 3rd down specialist role, I think he's fine. Like, he can get after the quarterback. I think the question for him is, and maybe he's going to answer it this season still. Like, can he be your every single down right end for the Vikings? And we'll have to see.
I think the important thing with him, though, is my sense is he's going to do what he's told to do and what you want. I think the problem with Ngakoue was he basically said, "Hey, I rush quarterbacks," and they're like, "But dude, what about the run?" Hey, I rush quarterbacks, but there's so much more to our defense than that. Oh no, hey, I'm rushing the quarterback. Give me Mike Glennon. My next statement, and I need to parse this very carefully when I say it because I think we all agree, but just if I say it in a broad way, it's gonna be pushed back against because this guy does get targets and he does get the ball. But Justin Jefferson needs to consistently see the football more. And by that, I mean, look at the disparity in Sunday's game, okay? 2 targets, 2 catches for 12 yards in the opening half against Jacksonville. And then they adjusted at halftime and came out and said, we've got to throw more to number 18.
Hey, let me ask you this. Since you're doing the splits, how many points did they score offensively in the first half?
They were down 16. Hold on a second here.
Was it 9-6?
It was 9-6. It was not. They scored 6 points.
And so then how many points did they score in the second half?
They scored 18 points in the second half. And if you include the OT, they scored 21 points.
So they scored like 3 or 4 times as many points in the second half. And they targeted Justin Jefferson like 4 times as many halves. That seems like too much of a coincidence to be ignored.
But so in the third and fourth quarters and overtime, Jefferson had 7 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown. Now here's the thing, though, because I think Vikings fans will say or might say, yeah, but he was open more. No, here's the thing. You're playing Jacksonville. That poor cornerback. Open, yeah. You're right. That poor cornerback. Did you see that guy who was trying to cover him? He had no chance. And when the Vikings threw to Jefferson, especially deep, what he tended to do, and I don't blame him, I do the same thing, is he just grabbed him. And that results in what I like to call a penalty flag, okay? So there have to be more opportunities. It's not that Jefferson is not being thrown to or that he's being completely ignored. I believe he was targeted something like 12 times. So he was targeted plenty, but it's how he was targeted and when, and there needs to be a consistency to it. And Adam Thielen, I'll continue to say this, is a very good player. I understand that. But we also need to understand what his role can be and should be. And he's a security blanket guy as far as a possession guy, and he can make catches short, intermediate. But if you're going to go deep down the field, Justin Jefferson is your guy, I would say, unless he's triple covered.
Okay, I think it's Luke Barku is the quarterback that was.
I looked him up. You're correct.
The one that had the most trouble yesterday for the Jags.
Correct.
So he was targeted when lined up against Justin Jefferson. He was targeted 4 times. Justin Jefferson caught all 4 of those passes for 80 yards and a touchdown and 2 first downs.
Yeah.
Adam Thielen also lined up against him 3 times for 3 targets for 2 catches, and one of those was a first down. So yeah. That guy struggled.
But that guy had no chance. It looked like you playing corner.
I'm going to take Judd's, I believe it was his concern last week on Friday, and turn it into it and keep the same statement, but kind of expand on it a little bit. And it's the Dalvin dilemma. So on Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 38 touches for Dalvin Cook. Now, and he racked up 179 total yards. They gave him the ball a lot rushing. They gave him 32 times for 120. They found him 6 times in the air for 59 yards. That's great. But 38 touches for Dalvin Cook, and everything flows through him. We heard that Beth Moen said on the broadcast. We've been seeing it for the last 14 weeks. But 38 touches. And with Alexander Mass, who I believe had an appendectomy, appendicitis or something.
Yep.
He had his appendix removed on Saturday, which I think threw a monkey wrench into the whole plan, because I think it truly was, even going into that game with how back and forth it was, Alexander Masson was supposed to get the football on Sunday against the Jaguars. And obviously that gets completely thrown out the window when you have a medical emergency. But 38 touches for Dalvin Cook, you have to figure out a way to make that a more manageable term, or get Alexander Madison or guys like Mike Boone and Abdullah involved more.
Yeah, it's tough to swallow that you need Dalvin Cook to touch the ball a career high times. And they tried to get him to touch the ball 41 times because they also targeted him 3 times where he didn't catch a pass.
Think about that.
against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
now if you look at his numbers on the year, he's leading the NFL in touchdown rushes with 13, and he's second in yardage behind only Derrick Henry. He's only 67 yards behind Derrick Henry. He's played one fewer game than Derrick Henry because he missed the game with an injury. He leads the NFL in rush yards per game. So it's like he's one of the non-quarterback MVP candidates, but I don't know. I hate to sit here and like panic about it because he is one of their best weapons. He's in his prime and they should just like use him as much as they can. But at the same time, if they keep using him at this rate, especially when the team has acknowledged and Gary Kubiak has acknowledged he's not 100%, how much of his future value and ability are you cutting off in 2020? It's hard to say for sure. It's kind of like pitchers. Like, I don't know. If he throws 110 pitches, is his
Jack
arm gonna
Morris
fall
would
off?
have
I
had
don't know.
Dalvin Cook carry the ball 50 times. The one thing that concerned me in watching him play on Sunday, and to go back to Dex's point about the 38 touches, he clearly didn't have that step or that cut. Like the ankle was not, it was off. There were moves. There were times where I saw him carry the football where there was no question if he was healthy, he gains an extra 10 to 12 to 15 yards, and he didn't have that. And yet you didn't see the Vikings sort of peel back and be like, oh, okay, whoa, hold on a second here. They were like, it's Dalvin.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that struck me as odd was you could clearly see that he didn't have that little extra burst, and it didn't really impact how the team used him or felt about it. And I probably would have said at that point in time, he's still going to play. He's still going to get touches, but let's dial it back and do something else. Yeah. And by the way, if we're going to put the faith that you do in Mr. Guad technically should be able to carry you through a game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Where I need Dalvin to be stupendous is against Tampa Bay. Are you going to get that now?
I guess we'll find out. I would definitely not practice him on Wednesday. I would just let
I'd
him just sit all week.
I'd be done practicing him. He doesn't need to practice anymore.
All right. I for sure have one more statement here for you guys. You guys have any? The Vikings special teams units have now officially covered the entire bingo board of incompetence this season. Okay. They went in yesterday. So let's just make a list here. So going into yesterday, they had checked the box of 3 straight weeks with Chris Boyd penalties on punts.
Hold on. I got to do this. Okay.
Long snappers rolling ground balls. Long snappers getting cut.
Okay.
Blowing a fake punt attempt because Chris Boyd, your gunner was waving his arms in excitement.
I'm open. Brendan.
2 block punts in one game. You also checked the box of your opponent. Let me think here. 12 games into the season, racking up as many punt return yards on their first return of the game, 13 yards, equaling your punt return yardage for the entire season. All of that happened.
I've lost count.
And the only box you needed was a kicker meltdown. And you checked that yesterday, too, because our guy, Dan Bailey, missed 2 extra points and a game-winning field goal. Eventually, he did kick the game-winning field goal. But I literally think everything you could possibly check off special teams-wise has gone awry this season. And the Vikings have won most of these games that they've had meltdowns in. They've won a game with a kicking meltdown. They've won a game with a Chris Boyd meltdown, and they've won a game with a punt block, or 2 punts getting blocked, a punt team meltdown. So
Right.
good for them, I guess.
I prefer to call those magoofs. From now on, we shall refer to special teams errors as Marwin Magoofs.
Yeah. Magoofs. Still getting paid.
All right. I think I'm up next. My next statement is this. When the Vikings are forced to be in the nickel package, which they are quite a bit, right? 3 corners. You got Gladney. You got Dantzler. Okay. All right. When they are forced to be in the nickel package, there is now, I think we can say, and this is unfortunate, ineptitude at the right cornerback spot. It is a huge issue. Go back to the first game of the 3 games at home. Chris Jones in one of the all-time great missed tackles. Basically, he didn't even miss the tackle. He just watched the Cowboys back run by him, and he's like, oh, darn. Yesterday, we saw Chris Boyd, who is better, in my opinion, than Chris Jones, but far from a polished or perfect player. Touchdown 1 that Glennon threw, I believe, went off Chris Boyd's body. On the next drive, which the Jaguars got a field goal out of, there was a 34-yard completion by Glennon. And on the play, Boyd sort of mistimed his jump, got beat on that play. And then there was another 3rd and goal throw that Glennon basically threw, hold up, wait for it, to Chris Boyd. And Chris Boyd turned around and was like, is that the football? Oh, yeah, that was the football. It just hit the ground.
Yeah.
When the Vikings are forced to play 3 cornerbacks, you know what? Gladney banged up. I trust him though. Dantzler,
he's a player. He'll be a player.
Dantzler's
a player.
Growing trust each and every week.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the right corner spot. That, my friends, that is something that I can guarantee you. Mike Glennon might have eventually forgotten to throw that way on Sunday. No matter how bad he's struggling, TB12 will not forget that either Chris Jones or Chris Boyd is at that cornerback position.
Easy enough to fix. The Vikings do have a 1st-round draft pick. Just draft another
You
cornerback.
didn't just say that.
God.
Just draft another
You
cornerback.
You didn't just say that. What are you going to do on Sunday?
God.
What are you going to do on Sunday?
All right.
Pray, I guess.
Yeah.
Dex, your last statement.
Yeah, final statement is
Going to church?
is go get it. This week against Tampa Bay, right now your playoff odds are at 38%. If you beat the Buccaneers, according to 538, that jumps up to 71% with the win. If you lose to the Buccaneers, that number falls all the way to 22. So literally, this is probably the biggest swing game of the season. You beat Tampa Bay, you beat Father Time and Tom and Bruce Arians, who are as functional as it gets right now. You can go down there and get it. Go get it. Get a big W, and your playoffs are basically sealed.
You're going to have to beat either the Buccaneers or the Saints if you want to get to the playoffs. Almost certainly. So go get one of them.
Don't say seal, Dex. This is the Vikings.
Yes, sealed is wrong.
I like
they
what you're
can still lose
saying.
to the Lions.
No, I'm going to say
I
sealed.
love your statement.
No, it's statements. It's sealed.
Daryl Bevel.
It's sealed.
If you say that, Daryl Bevel in the regular season finale in Detroit will beat him.
Dude, Bevel Peterson revenge game is a real factor now.
Declan,
a
you're
real factor.
Dude, you're young, my man.
I am.
Listen to Sports Dad
Young, dumb, and
and
broke.
Sports Bro.
what I do.
Listen, we are telling you the truth.
I mean, put it this way: the Chicago Bears thought that game was sealed yesterday against Bevel and Peterson and company. And then what happened?
I don't think I've seen the Bears play 4 quarters all year long. I mean, they would be amazing if they did, but I don't know if it's a lack of cardio. I don't know what their practices are like, but the defensive line, these guys are huffing and puffing the whole time. Like you said, no pressure, and I'm just so tired of the soft defense.
Cardio.
It's cardio. You're out of shape.
Man, those guys were breathing really heavy compared to the Lions yesterday. That's
Yeah.
why Mitch Trubisky fumbled all over himself. Just couldn't catch his breath.
Oh boy.
Got to run those guys more in practice.
There's not been one play this entire season that after a timeout hasn't been a busted play or a sack. So every time the Bears take a timeout, they lose yardage every single time. And there's not one bigger indictment of the coaching staff than that. How is that even possible?
I love the accent.
Yeah.
That's class.
Yeah. Across the pond. I mean, we have friends from
Yeah, we do.
many different countries.
Bernard,
Vikings
right?
vet line.
Wales, Germany, I believe are our 2 international spots. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking
These
out.
Poor Bears fans.
I mean, it's enough. It's enough. He's developed nobody. I mean, who knows? I mean, Trubisky, he's been worse. He's been awful. Everybody has been awful. Nobody has been any good. He develops nobody. But I don't really have that much to say, but it's enough already.
That was
They were
money.
5-1, right?
They were
Yeah.
5-0.
They were 5-0.
I think they're 5-0, and then they lost their first game, and they haven't won since. They've lost 6 consecutive games.
Hopefully a new GM comes in. I would relinquish Mac and get some salary cap back. You know, you only have a few more years left to him. I would let him go and then start there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's where I would start.
Yeah.
I think,
That's way too measured right there.
I think like all these, you're right. Like all these
They're
highlights from
resigned.
the Score and from ESPN 1000, credit to those radio stations. There really were no freakouts. It was just a bunch of like resigned, depressed.
That's
I think
that's a
the
bad
Bears
sign.
have gone through this year after year after year.
I'm done. My family has season tickets. I live in Savannah. I'm not going to come up to games anymore. It's not worth it. I'm not going to travel, to Nashville or to Atlanta, even 3 hours away. I'm just done. It's painful. So here's my thing. I don't know if there's a comment, but we really need the team to be sold and respect the McCaskies. We will always respect Hallis Hall, but it's time to move on.
This team is not that far from the Super Bowl, guys. Believe it or not, it's not that far. If you get the right quarterback you got Derek Carr, you got Stafford. I mean, there's quarterbacks out there available for you to get. Okay.
What if that guy's right? That you put Matt Stafford on this team
Who's
instead of Mitch Trubisky?
Yeah, who's the coach? That's my question.
Just everything's the same.
Nagy's melted down completely.
Nagy's the coach.
No, then they've got no.
You just swap out Trubisky for Stafford, and this team is
they have no
14-2.
No, I mean the defense has now quit.
Yeah,
they've quit on this guy. The last two games they have just basically said we're punting.
Did they quit, or did Adrian Peterson take it from them?
I love the rushing totals for Peterson yesterday.
16 rushes for like 50 yards.
Yeah,
a couple of touchdowns.
2 touchdowns.
An angry game-winning touchdown.
I mean, the man has turned into Fahu Tahi.
Yes, he's averaging 3.5 yards a carry.
He's allowed himself to become Fahu Tahi.
Over 500 yards rushing on the season, though.
Who's the who's the back that replaced Peterson when he got suspended?
Matt Asiata.
Matt Asiata. That's who he is now. Adrian Peterson has now allowed himself to become Matt Asiata.
Yeah, and you know what? Let me find the all-time. How close is he to Barry Sanders now?
It's got to be close.
Is he going to pass? Is he going to catch Barry Sanders against the Vikings in Week 17?
I don't
just
think.
Well,
the way Declan's going, yes, because he's like they're going to make the playoffs for sure if they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Okay, he's 400. He's 500 yards behind Barry Sanders.
Okay.
A really good month, and he could catch
the
him.
Vikings are going to trail Detroit in the last game of the regular season by 2 points. It's going to be at Ford Field, 27-yard field goal attempt, 2 seconds left. Dan Bailey is going to come in and miss because Declan assured us if they beat Tampa Bay, they're going to the playoffs.
Yeah, you just jinxed
You
it,
just
Declan.
complete. No, you're fine. Just don't.
Vikings,
if they beat Tampa, don't say they're a sure thing.
People don't jinx the Vikings. The Vikings jinx themselves. I could say they could lose out or win out, and they'll figure out a way to do the opposite.
Yeah, well, we'll see now.
Okay, you just keep going. You keep going. You just keep
tempting fate.
Yep. Oh, the Vikings are a lock to make the playoffs now.
If they beat Tampa Bay.
You know what though? If the Vikings are behind against the Detroit Lions with the season on the line, as long as there's time left on the clock, boys.
That's right.
That's all my guy needs. Mr. Game-winning.
You know what it's going to be?
Himself.
It's going to be the first game where Zim screws up the timeouts. Kirk leads them down. They score. Too much time left for Stafford.
I'm not worried about that.
Too much time left. Prater, 62 yards.
Not worried about that.
Good field goal.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Purple Daily. Mackey and Judd, Declan producing.
Justin Jefferson.
And I think I would like to do a deep dive into some of the coaching-related things that can be cleaned up in those 2-minute situations. Maybe we do that tomorrow on our Nerd Football segment of the week. But thanks for hanging out with us. 7 days a week Vikings shows, Purple Daily, part of the Score North Network. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.